Hello and welcome back to the Sideline Eye podcast. We're back with our preview show and we're looking ahead to Armagh's round 5 clash against Kildare. As always, this podcast is brought to you in association with McKeever's Teamwear, proud suppliers of all Armagh GA merchandise. And as always, the link to the McKeever's website is in the podcast description. So I'm delighted to be joined by Steve McDonald, and he's going to give us his views on Armagh's season to date and look ahead to the Kildare game coming up on Saturday evening. Stevie, Armagh 5 points from 4 games so far in the league. How have you judged them? Have you been impressed with them?
Yeah, I think as a supporter of Armagh, and most supporters would certainly be in agreement here. I think we've all been impressed with how they've performed so far in Division 1. It's been quite a while since we played in Division 1 football, so we are probably coming in a wee bit unaware of how the lads would step up to the mark, but certainly they've been very impressive, particularly in the first 2 games against 2 of the top teams. But even in the last 2 games against Monaghan and Mayo, 2 very experienced teams, they still held their own and were competitive, and they're making life difficult for their opponents to beat them. So that's always a good sign as well.
And is that the one thing that's standing out for you? Is that they're difficult to beat now? I suppose it would have been something that Armagh would have been a stick to beat Armagh with, that, you know, they played well, but we're losing games. I don't know, we'll come to the Mayo game, which maybe was a failing of old, but particularly in them Tyrone and Dublin games, and even against Monaghan, probably a game that they shouldn't have been close to winning and still could have won it in the end. Is that what you're most impressed by?
Yeah, listen, being difficult for any team to beat you is always a good sign, but what I like about them is they're well structured at the back. They don't seem to be giving teams an opportunity to break through and have clear goal chances. Dublin got a very, very fortunate goal. Monaghan, just from a poor kick out, had 1 goal opportunity which came off the post. And apart from that, there haven't been any real clear signs of any of the teams breaking through and having clear-cut chances at our goal, and that's very impressive as well. I think our style of play, our transition from turnover in defence to attack has been very good. The speed at which the guys are going on the attack and the waves and the numbers that they're going on the attack has been impressive. And another aspect of their play, which I have been very impressed by, is their intensity in the tackle this year. They are surrounding players. Yes, they're still prone to concede a few scoreable frees, but when they are tackling and overturning teams, they are hitting them with plenty of, I suppose, tempo in the hits as well, and they're making their opponent feel the full force of them. And that's what you have to do when you're playing against Division 1 teams, and you have to compete physically and mentally with them, and they're certainly standing up to that challenge so far.
And what players have stood out for you, Stevie, so far in the first 4 games there?
Listen, it's hard to single out anybody. I think over the 4 games, everyone has had their impressive moments. But listen, Rian O'Neill, for me, is the standout candidate. He's possibly the informed player at the minute in the country. Yes, people would say David Clifford is up there as well, but I don't think if you were to ask the Kerry management, could you put David Clifford in the midfield or in the centre half back, that they would agree with that. But I believe that we could put Rian O'Neill into any other of them positions and he would still have the impact in the game. He's a classy player. He makes the game look so easy, and he's a fantastic outlet for creating scores and generating scores. Rory Grugan has been exceptional as well, probably the link player between defence and attack, and he's a calming presence on the ball. I've been very impressed with some of the new boys coming through. Jason Duffy has been impressive, bagged a couple of goals. Kieran Mackin has been a revelation for me in midfield. What is really impressive about Kieran is his ability to compete for primary possession and around the middle of the park, but his endless running is, I don't know what that man clocks up in any particular game, but I would love to see the stats. I think his running is very smart running. He's not just running for the sake of it. If you actually watch it, he's running to drag 2-3 players away with him all the time. 1 minute he could be in our full forward line and he's running sideline to sideline, and he must be an absolute nightmare to mark. And then next minute he's up playing the sweeper role, and he's been very, very impressive. I think in terms of newcomers coming into the team, he's been the one standout player. But overall, you can't fault any of the lads. Aidan Forger at full back has been very good and solid as well, and has been a calming presence in defence. Niall Rowland, it's very hard to identify and pinpoint anyone in particular, but I think they've all had their moments. Jordy O'Burns as well has been a revelation of being half back. I suppose a couple of years ago when he was playing midfield for Armagh, you couldn't have seen him being moved anywhere else on the park, but Geezer and his management team have seen a role for him, a wing half back, and his driving runs up the wings have been very impressive, and he's breaking gain lines, which always creates an opportunity for Armagh to go in the overlap.
I don't think it's any surprise that you picked the first couple of players you picked out were all forwards, Stevie. Coming from the forward line you played in yourself. How do you rate this forward line? Like you talked about O'Neill, Grugan, you've Duffy there, Nugent, Soupy to come in, Jamar has got game time, Tiernan Kelly's there. You have a raft of players, Oisín O'Neill, of course, still come in, Ross McQuillan, Kieran O'Hanlon, young clubmate. There's so many good forwards that can get into that forward line. What do you make of it so far?
Well, there's so many scoring options, and that's what I like about it. But also, along with the scoring options, you've got 6 players that are prepared to work hard and prepared to put in a shift for the team. There's no point in having a player who's quite capable of kicking points over the bar if he's not ready to work and willing to work. And I don't think Kieran would tolerate that at the minute. We've got 6 good options, and we've got a strong bench and quality players that can come in off the bench that can make an impact on the scoreboard as well. But it's the obviously the standout characters in the forward line is Rian O'Neill. Stephen Campbell has made his mark coming off the bench. Started the last day, but coming off the bench has been impressive as well. For me, Aidan Nugent is a classic player, a real clinical forward, and we haven't probably seen that side of things from him in terms of the campaign so far. And like, if Aidan hits top form, he's quite capable of scoring 7, 8, 9 points in any game. And he's bulked up, he's got stronger, he's joint captain of the team, and he's leading by example at the minute as well. And Rory Grugan, listen, we've seen enough of Roy over the last decade to know the value that he adds to the team. He is a very, very important cog in the Armagh attack. As I said earlier on, he's that probably creative player that blends well with from defence to attack, and when he's on the ball he generally does the right thing with it, and his ability to see a pass and find players in space is something that we need from an Armagh point of view, because we have dangerous inside forwards that can really hurt opponents if they get a supply of the ball. And then you've got the likes of Conor Turbett, who has, last year in the club championship was probably the standout forward in the club championship, and hasn't started really a game so far. But I think maybe going into this weekend's game, what I'm led to believe, he's a player that's out injured from an injury he picked up in the Mayo game. But listen, as forwards go and forward lines go, I think Armagh have one of the best forward units in the country at the minute.
And just before we get started on Kildare, Stevie, we'll go back to that Mayo game. And Armagh had been unbeaten going into that game, and I suppose picking up their first loss. Okay, Mayo are flying high. Them and Kerry are obviously the two informed teams in the country, but getting beat like that, Stevie, and nobody wants to be beat, of course, and it's hard to turn a defeat into a positive, but the pressure's maybe off Armagh now. Was there a bit of pressure before that game that they were unbeaten and they were trying to keep it that way, obviously, and maybe now they finally got that first loss and it's a wee bit of pressure off for them now?
I don't know if there's pressure on them or not. Winning creates a lot of confidence within the camp, and Armagh would have gone into that particular game, even though they drew the previous week against Monaghan, they would have gone into that game confident that they were capable of beating Mayo. And, yes, they led most of the way in that game. And I suppose it's probably having the know-how and the experience when you come up against the more seasoned teams like the likes of Mayo or Dublin when the chips are down and they're really putting you under the cosh, that you're able to withstand that pressure and come out with on the right side of the result. And what I'd be saying is a couple of things that they probably lacked in the defining moments of that game is conceding possession, something that we hadn't seen in the first two league games. Particularly, I was impressed with how they controlled possession of the ball, and they conceded unnecessary possession of the ball in critical stages of the Mayo game, which allowed them to build a platform to kick on and get the match winning scores. And the other thing is, when you are leading a team, keep the scoreboard ticking over. Every opportunity is a critical score, and I keep highlighting the fact that when you're playing Division 1 teams, they're always capable of hitting you with a sucker punch. And if you keep the scoreboard ticking over and you're far enough away, then that sucker punch mightn't affect the overall score. But there's been lots of positives, and I wouldn't be overly concerned that Mayo come back and beat them. But the one big positive that I would take out of it is that it wasn't a walkaway victory for Mayo. They had they earned a victory, and I think each and every team that plays Armagh this year will realise that if they're going to beat Armagh, they'll have earned it.
And just on that final 10 minutes, Stephen, you talked about sort of giving the ball away, and that's something that we hadn't seen the first couple of the games this year. Is that just an experience? Do you put that down to an experience and probably coming up against the quality that Mayo have and the press that they put on? It's difficult for any team to cope with, but for a team that this is their first time really a proper Division 1 campaign, and a lot of players playing in Division 1 for the first time.
Yeah, you can put it down to inexperience, certainly, and the boys will learn, and they'll learn fast from it. And if you rewind the clock 15 odd years ago when we were playing, we were seen as a team that came strong in the last 5-10 minutes of a game, and it wasn't that we'd done anything different. We just stuck to what we were good at, and we didn't change our ways in any shape or form. But we were, I suppose, relentless in terms of how we went about things in the last 10 minutes, and when we got an opportunity, we really made it count. And if the Armagh team can learn anything from our era, is just to keep plugging away and keep the scoreboard ticking over, and don't change their ways in the final 5 or 10 minutes. If you're good enough to go 3 or 4 points up in any game, continue doing what got you there. Continue doing it and believing in your game plan and what you're about as an individual footballer, and keep sticking to it. But it's inexperience counts for a lot, and I still think we have enough experienced players also as well to be able to get them over the line in those situations. But it's a different story when you are playing against teams who have competed in All-Ireland finals over the last number of years, that know how to see a game out. And Armagh, as I said, will learn. They will have watched and analysed that performance against Mayo, and also the Monaghan performance. And I think the overall outcome will be that Armagh will be better and stronger for it.
And something coming out of that Mayo game as well, Stevie, was obviously the goalkeeping choice. Ethan Rafferty standing between, and he had been number 16 for the first couple of games, but we weren't really sure was it a black or orange jersey he had on. But yeah, he started in goals. What do you make of this? I know Rory Began and Niall Morgan have took it to a new level, but every team seems to be doing this now. What's your opinion on this, that a forward like Ethan Rafferty, forward / midfielder, playing in nets and playing as an extra man?
Yeah, listen, I have no problem with it, as long as the player playing in goals realises right where there is potential danger. Rory Began got caught out twice against Kerry. He should have been caught out against us in the athletic grounds as well if we had pounced on a few opportunities. But particularly against Kerry, and the week before the Armagh game, Rory Began almost got caught out. I think it was not Rory Began, Niall Morgan almost got caught out against Kildare by playing the high line as well. So it's a risky game plan. It's something that, yes, I'm happy with, as long as there's a point in on the pitch where I suppose the goalkeeper says, right, let's hold the reins a wee bit here and not let the house fall apart if we are overturned. But listen, Ethan, the change in approach to the goalkeeper, Ethan is a big man, he's a big presence. He probably would instill a fear factor more so than what Blaine would, and no disrespect to Blaine, but Blaine has been very good for us. But Blaine's kickouts in the Monaghan game put us under a wee bit of pressure as well, and maybe that went against him in terms of starting slot against Mayo. And but listen, whatever Kieran decides to do in terms of going with either Blaine or Ethan, I'd be happy enough with either. I think both add a lot of value to the team, and are quite capable. But if it's Ethan, I would still like him to be a wee bit cautious in his approach to venturing further out the field, because ultimately, you know, you could be prone to getting caught with a sucker punch, and it's not something that I think we would react well to.
I think the last couple of years, Stevie, did you go into goals for Clevie Seconds? Did you play sweeper keeper or anything?
No, I went into goals for Clevie Seconds, and I enjoyed playing goals. And the reason why I went into goals was that there wasn't too much run involved, so I wasn't too fond of venturing too far up the field. I went out a few times, but I only ever went out as far as the 45 and got straight back into the goals. I ventured up the field to kick the odd 3 or 45 himself, but that really was it. When I was venturing out the field soloing the ball, I was always a wee bit aware that somebody might turn me over, and even at junior level football, it doesn't make a difference what it's at. You know, you can still be punished, and you always have to have that awareness around you playing in goals that somebody can come from behind you, intercept you, and make you look like a fool. So playing goals is fun, and it's a great place to be now, because you can set up so many attacks, but you have to be smart and sensible about playing there too.
And Kildare, I suppose we can't talk about Kildare without mentioning their management team. There's been such a buzz, I can imagine, around Kildare since their management team was announced. Obviously, Glenn Ryan is the manager. You have Johnny Doyle, Anthony Rainbow, Dermot Earley. I think Paul Galvin's involved well.
He's on his forwards coach, yeah.
There's a list of, all stars there that it's bound to be an exciting time for Kildare.
Yeah, particularly, I suppose, taking Paul Galvin out of the equation, all the Kildare ex-players that you mentioned are all cult heroes in Kildare, and there was no doubt that they were going to get an initial reaction from their players and also from their supporters. And the last day out, the Folly were deserving winners over Dublin as well. And when you have boys who have soldiered for so long for their cause on the sidelines, you take the direction and the guidance that they are offering with great intent, and you try to listen to as much of it as possible and put that in performances on the pitch. And Kildare have stood up to the mark so far. Having Paul Galvin as an extra man on the sideline and as a forwards coach will only add value to the overall setup as well. And there's a lot of experience there for the players to call upon. There's a lot of experience for the players to listen to, and if they're capable of doing that, then they will make inroads into where they are in terms of competing at the top table.
And you played against most of them players, and particularly, I suppose, Glenn Ryan. He in Kildare, he's probably the geezer figure, the inspirational centre half back, the motivator. And I suppose, were them qualities that he had as a player always pointing that he was going to be a manager someday? I suppose in comparison to Kieran McGean, it's something similar.
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to say that he would remind you almost of how Kieran was for us. That inspiring figure, playing from number 6, driving the team forward, putting in the big hits, making the blocks, being an ex-team captain, showing great leadership qualities on the field. And you can always see that. You can always see players who got there, particularly that they will at some stage venture into management. We've been very lucky with the likes of Kieran McGeaney, even Kieran McKeever on the sideline. He was that type of player as well, involved in our backroom setup, and the likes of Aidan O'Rourke as well. Players who got there that, I suppose, playing the half-back line to have that enforcing factor about them. You can always see them becoming managers or part of a management setup, and Glenn Ryan certainly hits all the chords in terms of the qualities that you have to have in terms of getting into the top level management.
And Kildare coming in this week, Stevie, they're coming in on a high. They've beaten Dublin. They've ended whatever 10 or 15 years of hurt. Whether that transfers into the Leinster Championship or not, we'll find out in a couple of months' time. But they're coming in on a high here. They've just picked up their first win. They've shown that they can compete, a bit like Armagh have shown this year. They've shown that they can compete. They've beaten Dublin. They've drew with Kerry. They're coming in, and they've probably not got enough points that their performances have deserved. They probably should have beat Tyrone. That day, as I say, they drew with Kerry and they've beat Dublin, so they're coming in here. They're looking points, and they're going to be coming in on a high.
Yeah, well, I was impressed with them against Tyrone. They travelled up to Healy Park and really until the last 10-15 minutes of the game should have probably held on to win that particular game. They are another team that plays very much so with the sweeper keeper, with Aaron O'Neill venturing very far out the field. And I would like to think that from an Armagh point of view, we'll try to identify that there and maybe cut off the supply of ball going to Aaron, because he is a natural looking footballer out the field as well and can create that overlap. But we can also hit them with a sucker punch too if given the opportunity. But listen, Kildare, they've drawn against Kerry in their own home ground. They've beat Dublin in their own home ground. They haven't picked up any results away from home. So hopefully that bodes well from an Armagh point of view this weekend. Are they very much a home team that are capable of picking up a victory or a draw, or did not travel too well? But definitely from what I witnessed and what I seen against them with Tyrone, they were very much in the game, but they just didn't see out the game and get the result. But if they're capable of doing that against Tyrone, I would almost believe that they're capable of doing it against Armagh this weekend as well, if given the chance.
And there's so much quality in the team. I think it's Mick O'Grady, the cornerback, is their man marker. Feely in the middle of the field. Up front you have Hyland. But I suppose Daniel Flynn, he's the superstar, if you like. He's the shop window. We were talking about Rian O'Neill at one end. Daniel Flynn's obviously going to be a big cause for concern for Armagh. And I would imagine it's going to be Aidan Falker picking him up.
Yeah, Aidan Falker would be the obvious choice. A very strong defender as well, but Daniel Flynn's a big, huge presence for Kildare. He's their, I suppose, their main focal point in their attack. But what he's capable of doing, what he has shown in the early rounds of the National League, that he can beat 2-3 defenders at ease and get a shot in, or link play as well with players coming off the shoulder. So he has to be tightly marked, and for that to happen as well, it's not just a case of the likes of Aidan Falker staying close and trying to stop and getting the ball, but it's also the boys at the field stopping the supply of ball going to the most dangerous forward that they have. And on current form, Daniel Flynn is in the top 4 or 5 forwards in the country, along with Rian O'Neill, David Clifford, and players you got, maybe Shane Walsh as well. So, he's a player that we have to earmark before the game, before the ball is thrown in on Saturday evening. And I'm sure that the management team will do this, that we have to stop the supply of ball. And how do we do that? And that's by putting in a hard working shift out the field to make sure that the ball going into him isn't easy, and it gives our defence a chance to cut out any ball coming in. And but definitely, if he does win primary possession, he has ability to take men on. I would just like to think that the intensity in the tackle and the bodies that we get around him is enough to stop him causing any real damage.
And Stevie, I'll let you go after this. How big is a win this weekend? Because I don't think mathematically Armagh won't be safe, but it keeps them up at the top end of the table. And with Mayo playing Kerry this weekend, if Armagh win, they're going to could possibly go second in the league table. So this is a big occasion and a big game for Armagh.
Yeah, well, providing Mayo and Kerry don't draw, and Armagh get the result, Armagh, I think, automatically go back to second place. So from an Armagh point of view, I wouldn't be even contemplating the thought of relegation whatsoever, or going back down any divisions. My thoughts, if I was in that dressing room at the minute, would solely be on, let's get to a league final. Let's compete and get to a league final. And the best way of doing that is going and putting in a big performance at home on Saturday afternoon against an improving Kildare side, a game that isn't going to be anyway easy, but we have to put in a hard working shift to make sure that we get the 2 points on the board. And if we can do that, then we're down to the final 2 games of the campaign with every opportunity to compete for a National League title. And yes, the Kerry game will bring on its own, I suppose, pressures at that particular time. But first and foremost, from an Armagh point of view, they're in a very strong position at the minute. There is an opportunity to maintain Division 1 status, but I'd be thinking of, let's compete and let's try to get to a National League final at this point, because to have enough points on the board now, not that they're totally safe or anything, but they have enough points on the board to suggest that they're capable of competing with the top teams. So why not try to get to a national final and really show what we are made of?
So that game is on Saturday evening. Armagh taking on Kildare in the Athletic Grounds at 6 o'clock. The under-20s are back in action this weekend as well. They travelled to Cavan on Friday evening. The Miners, they got their league campaign up and running last week with an impressive win over Antrim, and they take on Monaghan on Saturday. And the Armagh Mogs, they continue their league campaign and they host Dublin at 2:30 on Saturday as well. So we'll be covering all them games with the match reports, previews, podcast as usual. So make sure to give us a follow on all the social media pages and subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. Stevie, thanks very much for coming on and giving us your thoughts on the game.
No problem at all. Thank you.